I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
This is where the fun begins.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Jedi Knights, the official Star Wars podcast of JoyClicks. I'm your host today, Christian Buckley, joined as always by my Chewie, Mike Connors. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. We have some fun Star Wars stuff to talk about today. We were talking before the pod how it's more fun than serious, but that's what we like here at Jedi Knights. Sometimes we like to take a break from the seriousness. Sometimes.
I mean, honestly, I think maybe it's just because Star Wars, like, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like we're on the same page where there's nothing in Star Wars that we actively hate, right? Like, most of my disdain for Star Wars comes from the fandom, not necessarily the content. You know?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that, when it comes to you and I and the way that we approach Star Wars, it's definitely much different than what the hive mind likes to do online. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that you and I are probably more of the optimistic Star Wars fans out there. But there's nothing that I hate, and I just love seeing new Star Wars stuff. It just makes me happy from a very, very visceral and child level. So
yeah, well, to pour a quick bucket of water on that flame of warm feelings, I'm sure you saw at some reason this weekend The Last Jedi got trending again. 5 years later, right? 4.
I didn't see it. What was it trending for? All the negative reasons, though.
It was some guy who's verified on Twitter that I've never fucking heard of. He was like, "This movie's abysmal," and the fact that they burned the Jedi text because they weren't page turners. It's like, bro, they didn't burn them. Like, did you watch the movie? Did you watch it?
Definitely did not watch the movie. It's really funny to me how some people, like you said, what is it, like 5 years later, that are just like completely insufferable about it. Yeah. And honestly, that dude probably should have tweeted that out when the movie came out. Old news, bro.
Yeah. Well, I love The Last Jedi. I know you've warmed up to it, but that is not the focus of conversation today. Today we got some exciting things to go over. But before we get into it, here for episode 92, why don't we kick off with From the Jedi Archives, our segment where we pull from the sacred text of Wikipedia to educate each other and the audience on a piece of Star Wars canon or legends. Mike, what did you pick this week?
So I picked the HCVW A9 turbo tank. Yes, that's right. That we all know exactly what I'm talking about.
Of course,
just from that.
Of course, but for those that aren't on our level, what is that?
Joking. It's a model of large 10-wheeled. It's a large 10-wheeled tank used by the Galactic Empire, part of Quat Drive Yard's line of armored wheeled combat vehicles. It acted as a troop carrier and a transport. We see this in the Bad Batch, and it almost sort of looks like the transport tank that they used in the Bill Burr episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian.
That's where my mind went, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's not the same. Maybe it's just like a different model, but it looks pretty similar. Mm-hmm. Though I did get this from the Bad Batch drop-down menu on Wikipedia as like one of the vehicles in the Bad Batch. So it's in Devil's Deal and Rescue on Ryloth. Those are like the two main parts. Also in Rogue One, Star Wars, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. I believe that's on Wobani when Jyn Erso is in the transport.
Yes, that sounds familiar.
So yeah, that's just a very interesting piece of. I love the Star Wars vehicles, especially the starfighters. But I think that ground vehicles in Star Wars sometimes gets overlooked, and I think that this is probably one of the cooler ones for sure. Very useful, and I hope we see more of it.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. I'm sure. I remember, Mike, we had this conversation about like the war of Star Wars, and I think Rogue One got close, but I'm still waiting for that like Lord of the Rings level, like hills with just waves and waves of people, with like an end game style, like armies charging at each other, like at some point, and I think this vehicle would fit there. I doubt it would fit in the Empire Rebellion war, but perhaps an Old Republic war. I think that could be some good imagery.
It could be some good imagery, and though this turbo tank is only from the Galactic Empire, there's no reason why we couldn't see like an earlier version of it or something.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that's what we did see, or maybe we saw a later version of it, or a later model rather, in the Mandalorian. So who's to say there can't be an earlier model? But I do like your idea of having a big Lord of the Rings style battle at some point. I feel like Star Wars, that'd be pretty cool. Though we kind of got that in Attack of the Clones, right?
Sure,
but,
yeah, kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. But very good pick. Very, very good pick.
Thanks, man.
Mine this week is Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, yes. We all know and we all love him.
He is a male Gungan at 1.96 meters tall, yellow eyes. He's got orange and white skin. Jar Jar Binks was a Gungan male military commander and politician who played a key role during the invasion of Naboo in the Clone Wars that culminated in the fall of the Galactic Republic and the rise of the Galactic Empire. Once an outcast from society due to his clumsy behavior, he regained favor with his people by helping secure an alliance between the Gungan boss Nass. I don't know his first name is Rugor.
I didn't know that.
And Queen Padme Amidala of Naboo.
Jar Jar Binks got a lot of hate when The Phantom Menace came out, but I liked him as a kid. I guess maybe that was just me being like 3 when I saw The Phantom Menace. But he didn't annoy me as much as it did the adults. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I had a Jar Jar Binks action figure. Did I tell you that story?
No.
I have a Jar Jar, or I had one, and then I remember, because kids like doing shit like this. I buried it in my backyard under the swing set, and the swing set got taken down like 12 years ago, and new like dirt was put over this backyard. Numerous times when I was probably like 12, I was like, where is this thing still there? Never found it.
Yeah,
never found it.
Wow. So he really like just was enveloped by the earth.
Yeah, some people feed the earth by planting trees. I gave them a nice chunk of petroleum plastic in the shape of Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, nice piece of orange plastic.
Yeah.
I have to say, speaking of the Jar Jar Binks action figures, actually, on the mantle in my apartment right now, like above the fireplace, that you can't use the fireplace for whatever reason, it's an old house. But I have Jar Jar Binks, an action figure of Jar Jar Binks, and an action figure of Balatik from the Guavian Death Gang, I think, right? And they're shaking hands. I kind of position them so that they're shaking hands, and to me, it's sort of a symbol of the prequels and the sequel trilogy coming to terms as part of the Star Wars canon. That's the way I think about it in my head. It's a pretty silly thing to have there.
Mike, that is beautiful. I think that will be the image of the treaty in another 5 years when people are like, you know what, actually the sequels are good.
No, legit, yeah. Like it's that's what I'm thinking. Like everybody's coming together, accepting that the sequels are good in a few years. That's the image that I wanna bring out there. So,
well, thank you for paving the way.
One thing I do want to say about Jar Jar Binks, though, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So, everybody loves to forget that it may be Jar Jar Binks' one of the key reasons why the Republic turned to the Empire. We can trace back to Jar Jar Binks as representative for Naboo in the absence of Queen Amidala or Padme Amidala in Episode 2. He gives emergency powers to the Chancellor, which really just sets off the domino effect. So Jar Jar Binks, you kind of messed up.
Yeah. Well, I forget if this was Legends, but I believe after that happened, he was exiled again by the Greater Republic remnants because they're like, this guy, he's the reason we got this. So
oh really?
I think that's
pretty
Legends.
funny.
I think that's Legends, but yeah, that is funny.
That's pretty funny.
Well,
anyway.
Speaking of funny, let's get to some news. We have a new holiday special for Star Wars this year coming to Disney Plus, but it is not a Christmas/Holiday Life Day special. the holiday we focus on this time is Halloween. So, Mike,
Oh yeah.
as far as holidays go, I feel like the popular one is either you're a Halloween person or a Christmas person. I don't know if that conflict comes from Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, but which one do you have a favoring towards, if any?
I truly, and this is a controversial opinion, I don't really like Halloween. I think it's like I understand why people do, and I respect it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to me, I don't know. I just I don't get as hyped about it as some other people do, which is fine. It's a fun day to dress up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say I'm more of a Christmas person. I definitely love Christmas. I think it's just a good time of year where everybody should just be nice to each other and happy and stuff. And I like that vibe better than Halloween. Though I am, an October baby myself, so I do love the fall. And I love the spookiness of it. I just, the message behind Christmas is more me. What about you?
Yeah, I do love Halloween. I love watching the cheesy horror movies. I like picking up costumes. My girlfriend Kayla loves Halloween, so that's always fun. She gets very into it.
Cool.
But yeah, Christmas has always been my favorite because it lasts the whole month. It's got the good vibes. It sucked being at college for 4 years because the campus never felt like Christmas, which is like understandable. It's a college campus, but like at least in hometowns or like literally anywhere, you get all the fun vibes. You go into stores all the time, and it's there. But Star Wars,
like wreaths and stuff.
Yeah. Star Wars has been able to, I guess for a long time, have a tie to Christmas because of the original holiday special. More recently, Disney positioned Star Wars, to the exception of Solo, to be the Christmas film. How there's always one in December, usually. But now this year, after we got our updated fun Lego holiday special last year, which I think we both had a fun time with, it wasn't super serious, right?
Oh, definitely. I think it was a good piece of media for the time and everything. It was fun.
Yeah. We got a new one this year, but it is for Halloween. It is coming October 1st to Disney Plus. It is called Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. I do have a synopsis, Mike. I can read through this, and then we can talk about hype
Please
levels.
do. Please do.
After the events of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, Poe Dameron and BB-8 must take an emergency landing on the volcanic planet Mustafar, where they meet the greedy and conniving Graballa the Hutt. Love that name.
Love it, yeah.
The crime boss has purchased Darth Vader's castle and is renovating it into the galaxy's first all-inclusive Sith-inspired luxury hotel. While waiting for his X-Wing to be repaired, Poe, BB-8, Graballa, and Dean, a plucky and courageous young boy who works as Graballa's mechanic, venture deep into the mysterious castle with Vader's loyal servant, Vani. Along the way, Vani shares 3 creepy stories linked to ancient artifacts and iconic villains from across all eras of Star Wars. As Vani spins his tales and lures our heroes deeper into the shadowy underbelly of the castle, a sinister plan emerges. With the help of Dean, Poe, and BB-8, will have to face their fears, stop an ancient evil from rising, and escape to make it back to their friends.
That's a great synopsis and a great idea for Star Wars Halloween special. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't seem and very much in the style of Lego Star Wars, just from the synopsis. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it seems like a very fun thing, I never was one that got super into the Simpsons Halloween specials. I know people love those, right?
Treehouse of Horror. I love those.
Yeah, because I just didn't get into the Simpsons until pretty recently, honestly, the past few years. But I think Star Wars tackling stuff through Lego, these holiday specials, is fun because I always loved holiday specials of TV shows and getting a Star Wars flavor of it. Like you're saying, it does fit the Lego style very, very well. And just the idea of a, galaxy at peace, no more threat of the Sith. They trivialize it. They're like, oh, yeah, the Sith, you can have stay at a Sith hotel. It's like, sure, Isn't that what happened with the Confederacy in the South?
I don't know. It seems like I guess even in the Star Wars universe, people are always trying to find a way to make a buck.
Yeah.
And
Grab all
when
of
you're
the
coming
cash.
out of a when you're coming out of a Sith-led galactic empire, maybe people are gonna want to see some of that past, some of that history. But let's not glorify it though.
Oh, exactly.
All right. Let's make sure that we're treating it in context.
Yes.
All right. But it seems like a hotel may be glorifying it. But besides the point, this seems like a really cool little thing. I really love the idea. I'm sure it's going to be really funny. The Lego Star Wars anything always is. It's just a certain type of humor. I'm sure. I don't have to explain it, but it's really interesting the structure of it. Going down deep into the bowels of Darth Vader's castle, learning about iconic villains from across Star Wars. I'm just curious, what do you think? What would you like to see them sort of like cover? When they say all eras of Star Wars, do you think that means that they're only going to be doing things that have been released already, or do you think they might like try to go back a little bit into like the High Republic and stuff?
So I think because the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special last year took place after Rise of Skywalker but wasn't canon, I think that's going to be following this as well. Honestly, it would be interesting if it takes place in the same timeline as the Holiday Special from last year. So like maybe we see like a more progressed Jedi Finn. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But specifically to answer your question, I think we'll get like a Revan thing. I think we'll probably be like, oh, this is an artifact of Darth Revan. It would be very cool if we got something from the Nile, just to see like, addressing that thing. I know they're not really Sith, but it's cool. I think this is an interesting concept of some character in Star Wars later down the line basically being a fanboy of the Sith and obsessing over them. That's what like the pitch of Kylo Ren was, but seeing that maybe more fleshed out and realized here will be fun, because I feel like that was an aspect of Kylo Ren that I was always like, I could see it, but it's because I was like reading between lines of things. Like the initial pitch was like, oh, this guy who's a fanatic about all things Sith, and it's like, well, he never really like showed that. Like he was very much wanting to be his grandfather, but that was about it. So what about you?
Yeah, I think it would be really cool if they did something with like the Old Republic. I think you make a good point when you talk about the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special that was released last year and how that wasn't canon, sort of like plucked from different areas of Star Wars. I do know, just like from sort of being like a Lego Star Wars fan, that there was like a Darth Revan minifigure that was released like only on its own, I think. So that exists. So, I mean, I guess like what I think about when I read the synopsis to this, it makes me think of like the Darth Vader comics. Are we going to see like maybe, are we going to see the mask that Darth Vader used, the Sith mask that Darth Vader used to like build his castle like 9 times? That could be part of it. Also, I'm just thinking about, I wonder how much crossover there's going to be between, this and like Vader Immortal. I wonder if there's going to be, some sort of homage to Vader Immortal in some way. I haven't played that myself. I just know it takes place on Mustafar with Darth Vader's castle. I think there are just a lot of cool and different ways that they can go about, telling interesting Star Wars stories in a fun way in this special. And I'm kind of really looking forward to it because I love the holiday one. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, and the idea of just seeing this, I'm imagining older servant of Vader, like Dracula-inspired old man in a like very uppity, deep, slow voice, telling these stories about Darth Vader's relics and stuff like that, and then Poe's like freaking out. Like it's gonna be perfect, If it's such a fun idea, and I'm excited to watch it for sure.
I wonder if they'll have the same voice actors. I forget what they did for the Lego.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be the same cast as the Lego ones for the regulars of the main saga. But the last thing, there is a poster out here. There's no trailer yet, but the poster, I think, sets the tone of everything you need to know. It's a gravestone with the Empire sigil on it, and Vader's hand is shooting out of the ground from the gravestone, and he's holding his red lightsaber, and it looks like cheesy fun. So excited to watch it.
For sure, I'm super excited.
You know what else I'm excited to watch, Mike?
I can almost guess, but why don't you just tell me?
Season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Me too.
So, to catch people up, there's rumors, right? There were rumors that it was going to start shooting this fall. There's rumors that the show might be coming out early next year for season 3. And that's unsubstantiated. I think that was all based off a Del Rey comic book synopsis of like, oh, catch season 3 spring or something like that.
I think we had brought that up previously.
Right. So that's where everybody's headspace has been lately for season 3 of The Mandalorian. Nothing official, but because Giancarlo Esposito was talking up season 3 at GalaxyCon Raleigh recently, we have maybe a bit brighter, a bit more clear picture of what to expect for season 3. He had a few things to say about season 3 specifically at the panel he was at, saying that, quote, they just finished Boba Fett and soon they will start on season 3. He confirmed Moff Gideon will be in season 3. And specifically in regard to the whole scheduling conflict with Pedro Pascal that you and I have talked about a lot, because currently he's filming The Last of Us until I think June or July next year. Giancarlo had to say, quote, we never have to wait on Pedro. I can't speak to him appearing unmasked more in season 3. I mean, I know he'd love to be more off the helmet, but you know, his job is to be in the helmet. You know what I mean? That's the idea. So, interesting stuff, Mike. You and I talked about this reality being true of, unfortunately, we already have had a lot of not Pedro Pascal under the helmet on set. So if spring 2022 is truly when we're supposed to get season 3 of this show, that's probably what's going to happen. And maybe they get Pedro for a day to do his unmasked scenes. But what do you think of this?
I feel I have like mixed emotions about this. In one way, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's what we've been talking about, like you mentioned. It's sort of just like from a logistical standpoint, makes sense that they wouldn't have to have Pedro Pascal. But, you know, I'm also sort of upset because the way that we left off in the Mandalorian season 2, and let me know if you agree with me or not, it sort of felt like Dinjarin, the Mandalorian, as a character by that point, seemed like he was getting more comfortable with like shedding off the dogma of like being a foundling and like the Mandalorian, and like being more comfortable with taking off his helmet and showing his face. So the fact that like it doesn't seem as though they're going to like really do anything more with that, just because Giancarlo Esposito is saying like we never have to wait on Pedro, and that like his job is to be in the helmet. It's like, yeah, but like, is it though? The way that the story has been told and the way that we've been sort of learning about the character, we've been seeing that development. We've been seeing him sort of like brushing off that like, you know, that sort of like history with the Mandalorians and everything, and sort of like coming into his own character and like making his own decisions and having his own sort of like personal characteristics that like it's sort of hard to hear that they're not going to be doing, or that it seems like they're not going to be doing more with that. I guess we don't know for sure, but
yeah,
Giancarlo Esposito's like his words sort of, you know, they lean towards that for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right where I was thinking the same thing at the end of season 2, but I do think there's a world where they could lean into, and we've discussed this before, but like the idea of he doesn't really know what to do with himself, so he just buries himself in work, you know?
Oh, like he doubles down, basically?
Maybe not doubling down, but just like, I'm always working, I'm always hunting, Bo-Katan is trying to kill me all the time, like, I gotta be guard up always. And I think there's honestly something you could do to make him sort of a tragic character at that point, where just to crush the hearts of audiences more, which I know television writers love to do, he opened up finally to Grogu and then gave him away, right? And now maybe we pick up season 3 immediately at the beginning of where we left off, And as soon as Luke Skywalker leaves, Bo-Katan maybe lunges for him or something, you know, and like he's like, that thing's mine. And I don't think she'd kill him immediately, right? Or anything like that, but an attempt on his life, he lowered his guard and look what happened. And maybe that could lead to something, maybe even just a path that leads to his demise because he's just so distraught. But I think there's absolutely interesting ways to develop Dinjarin in a season 3 beyond that character moment. And if it's not handled well, it could just feel like regressing as a character arc. But I think specifically with him and his views and his history, there's an interesting way to sort of shift it, I guess. So like it's more of like, I'm doing this for me, not for anything else, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Christian, that I hadn't considered before. I guess like you use the term like tragic character, and that sort of stuck with me. It would be like, I guess it really would be in his character if like, you know, something, you know, season 3 opens with him being like super distraught, or like you said, like he has his guard down and that was a mistake and he almost like reaps the dire consequences of that. Like it would be really interesting for him to sort of just like not know what to do with himself and just go deeper into like, you know, keeping the helmet on, just like doing everything that he did before and just like trying to push it out of his brain.
Yeah.
That would be that could be really interesting, and I didn't really consider it, so thank you for opening my eyes.
Sure, yeah, and remember this too, like he went his whole life being a bounty hunter, kind of ruthless, not really having a personality, I guess. Like he's kind of just this cold bounty hunter that does have humanity within him, but that was only brought out by his relationship with this child who he was with for maybe a year, maybe less, right?
Yeah.
I think you could reasonably make it so he fell back to the only thing he knew because like something bad came from being vulnerable. I think there's an interesting way to explore the character that way. And on our side, it's going to be like, this is the direction, this is the character arc we're getting because Pedro was busy. But
yeah,
that could still be interesting, you know, when life gives you lemons, I think is what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, I guess like the more that I think about it, the more like it does seem as though there are like 2 very distinct paths they can go with this. And unfortunately, it seems as though the path that they choose is highly dependent on like the availability of their main actor.
Yeah.
Like, which is like, you know, that's just life. And Pedro Pascal, like we've talked about before, has this commitment with HBO to film The Last of Us, and that reportedly is taking precedent over anything else that he's doing, including The Mandalorian. But as we've also mentioned, it's very possible to make The Mandalorian without him on set all the time. Like all you need is just a few days, really, and some time in the voice booth. Which, like, you know, I don't know much about production, but it doesn't seem as though that's as intensive as being on set every single day. So
yeah, because think about seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian, right? Pedro Pascal was on set. I think there's quotes from his surrounding cast in season 1 that were like, yeah, Pedro was like barely ever here. And he had the one scene in the bar and probably a couple others where he was present. But like with season 2, I think there were reports that he was under the helmet a bit more often than season 1. And he did have that one scene, or the 2 scenes, I guess, in the 2 episodes of helmet off. But like, again, that was probably like maybe a couple days. I think they can probably spread that out across an entire shooting schedule for when it fits him to shoot what they have to do with him.
Like truly, if you think about it, like the scene at the very end of season 2, like when he takes off his helmet, like
that was a day.
He's a good actor.
Yeah,
he's a good actor. That only takes like a day. Like, so, I mean, that's just the way that it's always been. They do a really good job hiding it. I remember when we were watching season 1 and that came out, where the news came out that it was mostly like a stunt double underneath the costume for most of the time. And we were surprised. I remember that. But, you know, like I said, they do a good job hiding it, and you don't really need him to tell a good story. So whatever they do, I'm sure that they'll do it right, because this is Jon Favreau's baby.
So do you think then the rumors are to be believed and we'll get season 3 early 2022?
No.
No.
I think no. I think that's a little bit too optimistic. We haven't really heard anything about them filming season 3 yet. It's August, so I feel like that it would take just a tad bit more time for them to really like nail things together. Because if we're talking about spring 2022, what are we really talking about? Like April, May, and so it's already August. They haven't even filmed it yet. It seems a little tight to me. I'm thinking like maybe a year from now.
Sure, like September maybe.
Yeah, or like they could do like a. I don't know when it would be the perfect time to do it. I feel like it would likely be better to do it in the fall than the summer, but I could see them getting it done for the summer if that's when they wanted to release it. I just don't think they will.
Yeah, because they're also going to have a bunch of Marvel shows next year as well. I think Andor is still supposed to be next year. I forget if Kenobi's 2022, but...
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, yeah, we got a lot then. So... Yeah, interesting stuff. We'll see when this hits. I could maybe see... Again, because it depends on the scope of what Mandalorian's doing, but they made season 2 relatively quickly compared to season 1. I know they were shooting season 2 when season 1 was like premiering, but I'm eager to see what happens for season 3.
I kind of expect that we'll get more information about season 3 when they start marketing for the Book of Boba Fett.
Sure.
I see a scenario in which they start to market for that, and like at the same time they quietly say like, oh yeah, the Christmas thing that's not happening. Yeah. Like like it's. I think that's what might happen, but we'll have to see.
The episode of the Book of Boba Fett that features Dinjarin does happen on Christmas, but season 3. We never said season 3. We just said like, oh yeah, look at this Dinjarin story coming out on Christmas.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully we get it earlier. You never know.
Yeah. But... I think hope for the best. Because we still got 2 other shows in Star Wars to get out next year. Who knows if we're getting a second season of Bad Batch next year? I don't know, but we'll wait and see. That's all we can do.
Definitely.
For now, though, there's some interesting merch we can get our hands on if we want to spend some money in Star Wars. First up, there's a R2-D2 Tamagotchi you can pre-order on Amazon right now. It is arriving November 11th. It is the standard Tamagotchi look. It's a little handheld egg with a very basic screen that has a few inputs for you to train, clean, and take care of a virtual pet, in this case R2-D2. It comes in 2 SKUs. There's a blue holographic translucent see-through one, and then a white solid R2-D2 looking Tamagotchi egg. Mike, what do you think of these?
These are pretty cool. I don't know, Christian, were you ever into Tamagotchis? Because back in like my primary school, like 3rd, 4th grade, I was into Tamagotchis, man. I was keeping that thing alive.
Ooh. No, I never got into Tamagotchi, but same company, because it's Bandai Namco that does these. They also do Digimon, and there was like the little Digimon pets. I had one, and I did not understand how any of it worked, and it probably died. But I always thought it was cool. I was never a Digimon kid. I always thought it was cool, though, and I wanted to be a Digimon kid. But no, I never really got super into these. But
I wanted to be a Digimon kid, but just wasn't cool enough. I see.
Exactly, that was it.
No, I was never into Digimon myself. I didn't really understand it either. But not for lack of trying. Well, for lack of trying, really. I just didn't. I wasn't really into it. But yeah, no, I really was into Tamagotchis. They're really fun. Mm-hmm. At least I can remember that they're really fun. You really have to like take care of it. Like it like poops and stuff, and you have to like clean up its poop, and like you have to feed it like every X amount of hours, and like it could die. So like I would take care of R2-D2 really well because I don't want him to die. I wonder though, normally when you do Tamagotchis, they're like a weird like alien looking animal, right? I wonder, and like you feed it like real food and stuff. I wonder for the R2-D2 if you're gonna have to like do like droid maintenance on it, like like in a different way than like the normal Tamagotchis. Another thing I remember about Tamagotchi is that there are like some really cool like button inputs that you can do that like give your Tamagotchi like exclusive stuff and like rare stuff and like codes that you can put in on like the 3 buttons that like I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. And I don't know if I'm gonna get one because they're a bit, they're not really made for 24-year-olds like me, but yeah, it's just cool that they're doing this.
Yeah, I think it's neat, as far it's like a nice, fun little nostalgic gift, I feel like this would go well in a Christmas stocking. This is coming out around the holidays as well, so yeah, I was never into Tamagotchi, like I said, but I do think this is a very neat looking, fun thing to have as a Star Wars fan. I love R2, so like I won't say that I will buy one of these things, but I wouldn't not buy one, like
yeah.
So
let's say if you got it in your stocking, Christian, you would play with it
until it died, yeah. And I wonder because I know certain licenses are weird with crossovers and partnerships. Like, there was that Mortal Kombat versus DC fighting game in like the 360 generation, and I remember Warner Brothers was like, it can only be T. Batman can't get decapitated. Like, that was a very hard rule they had. So I wonder if because Disney, Lucasfilm probably has some rules for the way that their characters are interpreted. I wonder if, how Tamagotchi can die, will R2 die, or will it be like, sorry, you abandoned him and then he fell asleep in the resistance base?
Yeah, he's in a droid coma now. Good job.
So it just
that would be funny.
Yeah, that would be very funny. I want to see what happens if R2 bites it on this Tamagotchi.
Dude, I might have to pre-order this thing, actually. No.
There's a few other notable pieces of merch this week that made some headlines. First up is, if you're looking to drop way more than $20 on some Star Wars merch, we have a new hot toy for Luke Skywalker from The Mandalorian. This is quite impressive. Of course, he's Luke Skywalker from The Mandalorian / from Episode 6, but he comes with a little Grogu, a wide array of accessories to make him appear the way he does when he's slaying the droids at the end of season 2. Very highly detailed. Hot Toys always impresses. Mike?
Oh yeah.
I know you've collected the Black Series. Have you considered any Hot Toys before?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, I would love to have Star Wars Hot Toys. They are just so expensive. They're like, I don't know how much the Luke Skywalker one's gonna go for, but it's probably like 200 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe more.
Yeah, maybe more. They are like top tier replicas basically, and they look amazing. All of them do. But it's just like, I just don't have that kind of money, man. I wish.
Yeah.
I'm wondering though, does it come with R2-D2 or like is that separate? Because the photo that you have here in the doc has R2.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I can see if I can find anything on that, but if it came with R2 as well, I think that would probably either boost the price up or make it worth it, like depending on who you ask. Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah.
It does look really cool though. The Hot Toys always impress. I wish I had unlimited funds for it.
Well, something that might be up yours and I alley a bit more in terms of the price is a new Star Wars cookbook called Star Wars The Life Day Cookbook. We're talking about our love for Christmas and the holidays, Mike, and this is a holiday-themed holiday recipe cookbook from a galaxy far, far away. So,
very cool.
Do
you have any examples of stuff that's going to be in this cookbook?
So StarWars.com gave a few excerpts and a few recipes. One of them was Bantha Surprise, which I believe is a stew, like a beef stew.
Oh. Okay.
There's a blue Bantha hot chocolate. which looked interesting, and one that I think is a highlight that I would like to try is Mudhorn Eggnog.
Ooh.
So,
how is that different from regular eggnog? Do you know?
Probably just the title of the recipe. I can pull up the exact recipe to see what it is, but
Yeah.
I like making holiday stuff, cooking. I love cooking, so I am a fan of novelty cookbooks, especially for stuff I care about. I have yet to collect any, but the Star Wars one is a little appealing to me, Mike. I might have to check this one out.
It looks pretty cool. I'd love to have a steaming hot bowl of Bantha Surprise for Christmas, for Life Day. Excuse me. I also like cooking, and I think I like baking too, especially around the holidays. It's fun to like make cookies and stuff. I am looking just at the cover of the Life Day cookbook, and it seems as though that there is a Wookiee gingerbread man.
Yeah.
Which looks really fun. And just like, I don't know, I'm sure that they're really tasty recipes. I would buy this and try some of them.
I think I would too. So I have the recipe for the Mudhorn Eggnog. I don't know a eggnog recipe off the top of my head, but go with me here. Let's see what this is.
Yes.
2 cups of whole milk, 1 cup of half and half, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, a cinnamon stick, half a teaspoon of salt, 4 large egg yolks, a 1/3 cup granulated sugar, 4 large egg whites, 1 tablespoon confectioner's sugar, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. This sounds like eggnog.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like all the ingredients to eggnog.
I will say there's like a nice little frothy top on this one, so maybe you make a nice little like whipped cream or something for the top of it. But yeah, I'd love to be snacking on some Star Wars themed holiday treats this year, especially when I'm watching Book of Boba Fett with Dinjarin on Christmas.
Literally. I want to be I want to be dipping my Wookiee gingerbread cookies into Mudhorn eggnog.
Exactly.
On Christmas Day. So that's what I want.
So you can check that out if you're interested. It is currently, I believe, available for pre-order on Amazon for $23. So not too bad. This might be a pickup for me, but that is really
if you pick it up, Christian, you gotta come back with some reviews on some of the recipes.
Absolutely, for sure, I will. But that does it for this week in Star Wars news. So we have come to the discussion of the latest episode of The Bad Batch. This is episode 14, I believe. I got 2 more left after this week. It is called War Mantle. Exciting title, I think. The tone was set for this one, I think, when I saw the title. But bless you.
Excuse me.
Just brimming with excitement to talk about this episode of Bad Batch, Mike, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, we were talking last week about how we really needed something to sort of, like, something to end the season on a high note with, right? And I think that this episode is starting to, like, set something up. So that's, like, that kind of makes me happy. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but, like, we've talked about the previous weeks that The Bad Batch is a little underwhelming in terms of, the stories that they're telling. And I think this one turned it around.
Yeah, I think The Bad Batch, this episode, I agree. It's setting up an interesting conclusion for season 1, mainly with like Hunter and the potential for a Crosshair confrontation and all that. But I think I don't fault it for this, but I do think it is just basically another episode of Bad Batch, but this time the set dressing and the fill in the blank elements of the structure of a Bad Batch episode are just more interesting and are tied to the initial conflict introduced in the season. So, like, it's a solid structure, right?
Yeah.
It's a structure that works. It's a structure that Mandalorian used as well. And I think it just depends on what you slot in to, again, those, okay, fill in this word, who's the person we're helping, what's their problem, right? Like, that is the basis of almost every episode of this show. And sometimes it's just like, oh, the unique, fun, cool thing this week is the person we're helping is Hera. The unique, cool, fun thing is that there's a flood invasion. Like,
yeah.
But this week it is stuff that I think is, like I said, tied to that initial arc of the stuff with the Kaminoans, the struggle of the Bad Batch as a team, the conflict of the clones and the Empire, and again, paving the way to a confrontation. This feels like the beginning of a 3-arc episode.
It does. It does. And I think you make a really good point that this episode sort of like starts off the same way as like many of the other Bad Batch episodes that we've watched in the season have started and concluded. But the difference is this concludes in a very different way. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like you said, it's the formula of we got to go save this person, like, or we have to go like do this mission. Like, you know, Hunter doesn't want to, but like Omega appeals to his morality, and like they go and they do it. Like, it's very by the numbers until the end. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's sort of just like bringing in the watcher, bringing in the viewer with something familiar, and then sort of like building upon that and calling back to earlier episodes. Because I do think that while it is sort of like that formulaic, we got to go rescue Gregor, right? And like, you know, Hunter doesn't want to, but Omega like convinces him otherwise. That's very much what we've seen. But just the whole ending and the subplot, like the B plot of the Kaminoans sort of like deciding to leave Kamino because they're afraid of like the Empire basically stabbing them in the back. And so it sort of calls back to the beginning of the season, which I think is good, because I was getting a little bit bored with just the over and over, like, what's the job of the week this week, which is fine. But yeah, I definitely think that it's starting to set up something, and that we're gonna get some sort of payoff in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, which I think is exactly what we wanted, and I'm very glad we got that. And I think maybe it's because I'm just excited for the promise, but I do think this is one of the stronger episodes since the early season, right? Like,
yeah.
Obviously, I loved seeing Hera and her whole thing on Ryloth, but like getting more of a focus on that unique perspective that the Bad Batch can bring of like boots on the ground. What's it like watching this transition from Galactic Republic to Empire? It's bringing up more of those ideas again. I feel like that kind of faded away just to spotlight the other characters we already know and their thoughts, right? Where the whole conflict of the Bad Batch, the defect aspect that they get thrown at them versus the regs, and now this whole thing with the inhibitor chips sort of decaying, and where are people's allegiances going to lie when it comes to the clones? Like, if they have a choice now, what are they doing? I think all that stuff is interesting, and it's getting to, you know, paint the picture of what's to come with the Empire we're familiar with, and all that stuff is very interesting. I think that's what you and I gravitated to, and a lot of Star Wars fans did in the early episodes, where it's like, yeah, the Bad Batch has the ability to kind of make their own choice for the most part of how they're going to react to what's happening. And then that quickly gets swept away. But now it's kind of back because more and more clones are able to sort of have that choice. So it's interesting.
It is interesting. And we started to see that like in the past episodes of like, oh, like are the clones really, or like how strong is the inhibitor chip in these clones? Like, you know, some of them started to make their own decisions in previous episodes, and this episode starts with seemingly like a clone running away. It's not really explained, but that's what it seems to be. Or was that Gregor? I can't.
I think
really
it was Gregor.
tell.
I think it was Gregor.
Okay, so yeah, there you go. There's that right there. Wow, completely missed that, but yeah.
I think it was, but
yeah, no, that would make sense. I'm just stupid. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to like sort of get more developments on the plot that they sort of just set up in the past like few episodes, and I have to agree with you that like this is definitely one of the better ones from the beginning of the season. When the Bad Batch go and save Gregor, and they, and they get into the Imperial facility, and they realize that the stormtroopers are no longer clones, but they're recruits, right? That's like cool stuff that like was set up in the beginning of the season, but just never touched on again, and that's what we're getting now. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for them to just answer that question of just like why didn't the Empire use clones? And yeah, it's just I don't know. I just like I'm happy that this was the way that it is, because I was getting pretty bored with it, to be honest.
No, I was too, for sure. Like, for the most part, the past few weeks, I didn't even watch the episodes the day they came out. I watched them like on Sunday.
Me either.
Like,
yeah.
So that's never a great sign. Like, I think there were a couple instances with The Mandalorian where I was like, I'm not gonna watch it on Friday. I'll watch it like Saturday night or something. But that was only a couple times. And I don't think it's great if the main source of Star Wars feels like it's like I can watch this whenever. But I do think that the benefit of what's been going on with the Bad Batch as a show, it makes that easy, because honestly I think even for a super casual fan who like maybe watched the first episode and got a few in and were like, I don't care about this anymore,
yeah,
I think they could probably hop in with just this episode and like be fine. I think they could skip everything else we got, which isn't to say that what we got was bad, right? Or I didn't enjoy it, but
yeah, you could literally watch like the first 3 episodes, and then like maybe the one where like they escape from the Venator, and then this one, and that's it. Like, and you'd pretty much get what's happening pretty fully. So yeah, I mean, I'm just curious about what you think about how this episode kind of ended off, like the story points where it ended off, and where you think they're gonna go next in like the next 2 episodes, because there are only 2 more episodes left in the season. This one ended with a pretty big cliffhanger, and there's still some loose ends to tie up.
Yeah, I think next week we'll get. I don't know if this is going to be next week or the week after, because I think it depends on what the resolution of this is. But obviously, I think we're going to get full circle on the conflict between Hunter and Crosshair from that first episode. I don't know if that's going to be the focus of next episode or the season finale. Do you have a feeling one way or the other of like how important that conflict is going to be? Like, does something else get to be the main focus of episode 16, or is this the focus of the final episode, do you think?
So here's what I think. I think this is definitely the beginning of a 3-episode arc. It only makes sense. I think the next episode is really going to be dedicated towards like maybe the Bad Batch is trying to find like where Hunter was brought, because at the end of this episode, he was captured by the Empire. So I think that they're going to have to spend some time figuring out where he went. And I think during that time, we're going to get some more development on episode 14's B plot, which is like, the Kaminoans and everything. I would say that like this next episode is probably going to be a mix between like, the Bad Batch figuring out where Hunter is, like the issue with the Kaminoans versus the Empire, and also, just like maybe some small interactions between Hunter and Crosshair, with the episode after that being like a full-on rescue thing, and a confrontation between Hunter and Crosshair. I think that's the way that I've sort of theorized it going in my head. What about you?
I think that makes sense. I could maybe see a world where it doesn't feel like this is what they've been setting up with all these cameos, but I could see maybe a world where the final episode deals with saving Hunter and sort of acting as the first major initiative of the rebellion. Maybe like I could see them sort of work on that, but I don't know if this is the place for that sort of thing. Like I've since the early episodes, I've been wondering if we would get a Bad Batch leading some clones who defect from the Empire in like a sort of other rebellion of like the clones versus the stormtroopers. It doesn't seem like that's what they're doing. That was like, again, a very early season thought I had, but some reworking of that I think could maybe logistically be like, hey, we have to save our guy. Also, hey, someone like Saw Gerrera, do you want to stick it to the Empire and officially claim that there's a rebellion? Like, I could maybe see them tell that kind of story. I don't know if that would be what we would tell in the Bad Batch, but I have a feeling Lucasfilm wants to show the beginning of the rebellion in some way in the new canon, not Starkiller and Leia at a table being like, this is my family crest. Let's use it.
Yeah, legit. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the broader goal.
Yeah.
Of this, or just of like, you know, the new canon and everything when they're exploring this time period. Do I think that that's the goal for this season of the Bad Batch? I don't know. I don't know if that's really something that they're going to be like. I just have a hard time thinking that that's the route that they're going to want to go.
Yeah, like I think if there was a more focus on the specific relationship between the Bad Batch and the people they've been helping, similar to like Mandalorian, how that works of like, hey, yeah, we meet all these fun characters and then they come to help us in our time of need. If it felt more like, hey, there's a strong connection between this team and like Hera, not just like, hey, we're coworkers for this mission, you know? I think I would believe what I'm saying more. I think if we got what I'm saying, it would kind of feel kind of sudden and without fanfare, but maybe that's what they want it to be, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think to me, what I think is more likely, and obviously we have no idea, but we have some idea, but you know, we don't know for sure. I think it's more likely that they, you know, Hunter gets taken to like Camino or something, and the Bad Batch like has to go back, and like, you know, there was a whole thing with like Hunter telling Omega that she'll never have to go back to Camino.
Yeah.
But maybe she does, right? And I do think that if anything makes sense, it would be like the Bad Batch go to Camino or something and manage to convince like a bunch of clone troopers that what they're doing is wrong, similar to like what we were seeing previous in the season with some clone troopers turning coat. I think that may be likely, that they, like what you said previously, like lead a rebellious group of former clone troopers like against the Empire. And that to me seems like a more likely thing. And I think that they're probably going to talk a little bit more about like why the Empire is using just like regular recruits instead of clones. But to me, it does seem like if they were to go to like the origins of the rebellion route for at least the next 2 episodes, it would seem a bit sudden. Yeah. Though I don't doubt that that's what they want to do overall.
Yeah, I think if it's the way that you're saying right now, that's what I envisioned it was going to, like the main point of this show is going to be early in the season. But I feel like we just got so far away from the clone story arc that outside of like the individual clones out in the world, that I didn't see it happening. I prefer when the Bad Batch is more focused on the actual team and is more personal than like, hey, joyride through your favorite list of characters. So I would way prefer it to be what you're saying about just like maybe this story never gets out to the world. Maybe Saw Gerrera never hears of this. But like, yeah, a sort of act of rebellion, like symbolically sort of just showing where we're going later on through the clones and the Bad Batch. And honestly, if that happens, most of that the group of clones they're leading will die, right? But like,
yeah,
I think that would be a really good way to wrap up the season. And I think it's realistic to see that across 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, who's to say that like the end of the season doesn't end with like the Bad Batch are all together again? Maybe Crosshair is 2 plus or minus. I have no idea, right? And they're like, well, like obviously there is some fervor for going against the Empire, so we should like maybe hook up with some other people who don't like the Empire. And they're like, oh, let's go see what Rex is doing, and they leave you on a cliffhanger. And the next season is them sort of like hanging out with like the origins of the rebellion and like helping them out and stuff. I think that might be possible. I just don't think that like I think it's more likely that we get more development on like, you know, what's going on with the clones in this very tumultuous time in the galaxy.
Yeah, and that's the most interesting thing I think that the show has going for it. So I do hope that's remaining the focus. But
yeah,
we'll wait and see.
We will wait and see.
Do you have any final thoughts on this episode or predictions for the next one or next 2?
I hope it's good.
Me too.
That's what I have to say.
I do too. Well, that does it, I think, for this episode of Jedi Knights. Mike, it's a pleasure as always. Where can everybody find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
Very nice. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at Shun2D2, as well as here, youtube.com/joyclicks for the video version of Jedi Knights in the Jedi Knights playlist. You can find it on the channel next to the playlists for all of our other shows like Excelsior, our Marvel show, Gamescast, Long Play Club, whatever else you're looking for, you can find it there. If you want the audio version of the show, however, you can check it out on your service of choice like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you can rate and review on your platform, it would be appreciated if you did, because it helps us out, takes a quick second, and just helps the show. Just liking and all that, it does help the show. So if you want to help out further, patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1 and $5 tiers. $5 tier will give you producer credit on this show and every show like Aaron Easton and Charles Applin. So thank you very much. And that is going to do it for episode 92 of Jedi Knights. We'll be back next week with a Mike in the pilot seat with another episode of Bad Batch under the belt. But until then, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
May the Force be with you.
Oh, yes, you're right. Beep is up.